On April Fool's Day, NASA officially launched their Artemis II rocket, claiming to take humans back to the moon in 2026. Going back to the moon, however, would require us having actually gone there before, which myself and many other researchers have debunked beyond any shadow of a doubt in several previous videos, showing that the original NASA moon landings were faked in a studio on Earth. So now, over 50 years later, with half a century of technological developments, Artemis II isn't even claiming to land on the moon like Apollo, but merely flying by. So what proof are we being given that NASA is really sending people in orbit around the moon? As usual, we are shown a rocket launch from Kennedy Space Center in Florida, which performs the same parabolic arc that every rocket, missile, and other projectile shot into the sky does. Rather than shooting straight upwards towards the moon, which would be far more logical and look much more convincing, every rocket launch arcs from vertical to horizontal, and most you can even see beginning to arc back down to Earth before leaving view. NASA's excuse for this is that they are purposely doing this parabolic arc with all their rockets because of a super high-tech gamer gravity hack where the rockets are being caught in a gravity well that works like a slingshot to help propel them better to the moon. Yes, you heard right. The reason all these NASA rockets form a parabolic arc and look like they're about to drop into the ocean a few miles away is because going down is the best way to go up. So, all the NASA nerds will look down their bifocals at you, smugly explaining what their overlords told them about gravity and slingshots, while they watch rocket after rocket launched eastwards from Fort Lauderdale, making parabolic arcs directly towards the Bermuda Triangle. Watch closely as the rocket goes from vertical to horizontal and out over the ocean, away from all observers' views. In one instant, it just disappears from view completely. Where has it gone? It goes from being clearly visible to there just being nothing discernible whatsoever, like it just vanished into thin air. Strangely enough, that's the second time a flying object just vanished into thin air that day. Watch this footage from just before the Artemis II was preparing to launch, and pay close attention to the airplane that flies into view from the right-hand side of the screen. Where did it go? The plane just completely vanishes from view, as if it disappeared behind a giant green screen. Watch it again in slow motion. Another oddity is the following footage showing these cable cars lowering from the rockets during launch. These are known as the emergency escape cable cars, allegedly used to get the astronauts out in the case of an emergency. They sure look like they're being used here at this last moment. How do we know that they're empty? The astronauts could easily have just hopped into those cable cars to be taken to the next studio where they sit in harnesses pretending to be in outer space. Did you know that NASA is the world's largest purchaser of helium? Helium is a stable and very light element used for sending balloons up into high altitude. NASA admittedly uses large amounts of helium to send up its satelloons, but what about these rockets? Look at this image of the Artemis II live on Fox News. What does that look like to you? Honestly looking, without bias, doesn't that look like a giant inflatable blow-up toy? Look at the seams and creases. Once the rocket is out of the public's view, after a couple minutes of genuine launch footage, true to form, NASA always switches to CGI. We can never get full, live, unedited video focused straight ahead of the rocket, or with a view focused on Earth. All we ever get is launch footage, cut to CGI like this for an hour, then whenever they're ready to restart the so-called live feed, here's what we get. Always a view with huge portions of the screen taken up by large random pieces of the craft. Then, long blue screen outages lasting for minutes or sometimes hours, only to come back with another similar video of another large section of the craft in the foreground. Look at the supposed Earth in these videos. Why is it shaped like that? In every other image and video NASA releases of the Earth, It is perfectly circular. Why is it squished here? How can the Earth suddenly change shape this drastically? They always claim Earth is an oblate spheroid, but this is one of the only times I have ever seen NASA showing Earth actually looking that way. Also, where are all the satellites and stars? There should be tens of thousands of satellites floating around up there, but we never see any of them whizzing by. Another thing I guarantee we won't see is independent video from people filming with super zoom cameras capturing Artemis II during its slingshot around the Earth, nor during its trip around the Moon. P900 and P1000 cameras are able to zoom into the Moon with incredible detail, but I guarantee if we all train our telescopes and cameras to the Moon when Artemis II is supposedly passing by, not a single person will capture video of the rocket passing by the Moon. NASA has already started releasing new Earth images supposedly taken from Artemis II, and they are just as dubious as ever. Again, they are showing us Earth as a crisp, perfect circle/sphere in these images, yet just moments earlier in their live stream, they were showing video of a clearly smushed Earth, looking nothing like the pictures released shortly after. So let's take a closer look at these images. Where are all the continents? We are seeing half of the globe in this image, and there is nothing but ocean and part of Africa. We are supposed to believe that all of North America, South America, Europe, Asia, Australia, and Antarctica are just hiding on the other 50% of the globe? This is just like the famous Apollo 17 image claimed to be one of the only real photographs taken by NASA. If you're going to have Africa take up 50% of your globe, the math just doesn't work for the rest. And what about the lighting? NASA says Earth is fully eclipsing the sun in this picture, putting all of the light of the sun on the other side of the globe. So how is the entire dark side of the Earth shown fully and brightly lit? Or how about this one, allegedly showing the Moon from Artemis II? Why is the Moon much smaller here in outer space than it is on Earth? I have never seen the Moon that small, and yet NASA claims this picture was taken by the Artemis crew halfway from Earth to the Moon. The reality is, these are not real photographs. In fact, you can take these new images just released from NASA and run them through an advanced AI filter to check for authenticity and see for yourself. These images do not even pass AI scans for authenticity and are all coming back as confirmed CGI images. People honestly should be able to discern for themselves that these Earth images are clearly CGI, but if you don't trust your own discernment, even AI is telling you that these are not real. From ChatGPT, quote, "This is very likely AI generated or heavily composited. The window frame is unusually thick and irregular, with soft, almost melted-looking edges. Real spacecraft windows would be more engineered and consistent. The satellite outside is oddly placed and slightly stylized. Scale and lighting don't quite match orbital photography. The lighting on Earth and the interior frame feels cinematic rather than physically consistent, especially the glow and reflections. The composition is too clean and centered for typical handheld astronaut photography. Also, look at the bright hot spot of sunlight shining at one specific point of Earth. If the sun's light is transferring through 93 million miles of space to reach the Earth, shouldn't it be lit uniformly if that was the case? Why would there be a single bright spot as if being lit locally? Watching otherwise intelligent grown adults being completely duped and stupefied by this propaganda is honestly embarrassing and pathetic. Starry-eyed NASA fanboys are so excited by the prospect of living in their imagined science fiction Star Trek future that they cannot see the deception for what it is. They hear about building bases on the Moon and sending humans to colonize Mars, and these ideas, implanted by Hollywood, then fertilized by NASA, have taken such strong roots in their brains that they can no longer see the forest for the trees. For example, I watched the popular YouTuber Some Ordinary Gamers talking about his excitement about this Artemis II launch in his recent The Artemis II Launch video. The crazy amount of glee and happiness this man was experiencing during the launch, his permanent smile and glassy-eyed wonder, accompanied by his hopes of an off-world future where humanity lives on Mars, just made me sad for how duped the masses truly are. People want to believe they're part of some great exploration of the cosmos, and NASA gives them the ability to be backseat passengers with parasocial relationships. The last thing they want to do is honestly consider the possibility that they're being lied to about the Earth and outer space. So many never even look at the abundant evidence proving their entire worldview is nothing but a patchwork of propaganda and lies.